Hi everybody and welcome to this new video. I'm going to show you how to create your first Bitcoin with After Effects. In this tutorial we will use shape layers to create a coin in 3D without any plugin or expressions. Pure basic 3D shapes in After Effects with some features you might be interested to learn about if you are not familiar with 3D in After Effects. I believe this technique is perfect if you just want to add some basic sense of 3D to some of your designs, like this coin spinning in the air. We could use lights and textures, but honestly, it's still pretty limited inside of After Effects, so if you want to do more advanced 3D, you want to go for a setup with the Element plugin or use a proper 3D software. Okay, first of all, let's create a new composition. I'm gonna make it square for convenience. Now the reason why I made it a square comp is just to be able to create very easily a perfectly centered circle just by double clicking here on the shape tool at the top of my viewport. Now I will open my layer, go to content and scale down the circle inside my shape. We need to use a fill color instead of a stroke, and we're gonna select kind of a golden yellow. What we can do now is turn a layer into a 3D layer. And what we have now is just a simple flat circle. We can see now that we have geometry options, but for some reason I cannot select it. The reason why is because I need to change the renderer. So I'm gonna click on Change Renderer and choose Cinema 4D. As you may already know, the new versions of After Effects come with the Cinema 4D Lite on the plugin Cineware. So you can directly import C4D files into After Effects, or in this case, just use the Cinema 4D renderer engine inside of After Effects. You can find these options in the composition settings or at the bottom of the viewport. You can also change the quality settings to have a faster preview or more details. If we go back to our geometry options, we can see that we have some new features there. We can choose from different bevel styles, change the bevel size, and at the bottom here we have the extrusion size. So let's change the extrusion size to 50 pixels. So this way now we have a coin of a 50 pixel thickness. In the material options you can set up everything linked to your lights and surfaces. Cast shadows or not, accept lights or not, and here some basic settings about the surface and the reflections. Let's create another shape, a basic rectangle, and use a fill color. And of course, make it a 3D layer. When I bring the reflection intensity up, first you see my circle turns to black, because there is nothing around to reflect. The comp is empty, so it reflects only black. But if I bring my rectangle to the front, now we see its reflection inside my circle. That's pretty cool. Now I can bring the reflection intensity back to 50% so I can see my circle. If I change the reflection sharpness, the reflection of my rectangle becomes blurred. So that brings a lot of potential to achieve all kinds of renders simply using the shape layers and all those surface and reflection options. You could as well use an environment layer to have it reflect in your objects. I found this one on hdriheaven.com. They have tons of great free environments to download. When I bring it to my comp and I do a right click, I can select Environment Layer. This option is available only because my comp is set to the Cinema 4D renderer. So what happens now is that it changes the way my circle looks. If I switch my environment layer on and off, you can see how it affects the surface. So if I bring the reflection sharpness back to a 90 or 95%, the environment starts to show inside the shape layer. So I just wanted to show you these options are available, and of course you can also add lights on top of that, but in this example I want a basic flat 2D look for my design. The only problem is that I cannot really see the volume of my layer. What if I could have a sense of shadow on the sides of my layer? I can of course use a stroke with a different color, but there is another way to do that. In the contents menu of your shape layer, you will see some interesting features. You can add different material properties to the front, the bevel, sides or the back of your object. If I click on one, it shows me an error message. In order to apply different colors on the different faces of a 3D shape, I need to create a group first. So let's create a new group. I will place my shape in that group and rename it. And now you can have access to these options. We want the side color. So if I move around my shape, we can see only the side has changed with the new color. If I want to, I can also add a different color to the back of my object, a green color for example. So now all the sides of my coin can be of a different color. Let's remove the green at the back and choose a dark yellow for the sides. I'm picking exactly the same color, and I will just reduce the brightness and add a little more saturation. Let's try to make this design more interesting. I will rename and duplicate this layer. I will uncheck the fill color and use a stroke instead. Now, I will go to the geometry options and I want to increase the extrusion size up to 75 or even 80 pixels. When you extrude, it always pushes the extrusion back. So let's go inside our layer properties. What I want is to move the anchor point to half of the size of the extrusion on the Z dimension. Of course, I need to change the anchor point also on the other layer. If we check that from the top view, we can see it's centered. Okay, so back to our stroke. This works also if I use dashes to make it look even more like a coin. So I can just go to my stroke properties and click on dashes. This allows to add a more complex look to our design. But we have a problem here. We want these dashes to be on top of the main stroke. So I can duplicate this ellipse. I remove the dashes from the first one. In the new one, I can increase the size of the ellipse so we can have a more interesting look on the strapping of that coin. To have a better look here on my stroke, I will just change the color and pick the main yellow gold color here. Let's create a new group that will name dashes. I will place my ellipse, which contains the dashes, to this group, and the color changes. Because in that group, we did not set a side color, so it goes back to the main stroke color. That really starts to look good. I actually want to fix the stroke color with a darker tone. Also make it wider. To compensate this change, I will decrease the size of the ellipse just a little. Okay, so now we have that very simple coin made of two layers merged together in our 3D space. Okay, so now to make it a Bitcoin, we need to drop a letter B inside. What is great is that text layers can be extruded as well. After I turn it to a 3D layer in my text menu, I will find the same properties for the front, the bevel, the sides and the back. Just below are the geometry options. Let's extrude this on 50 pixels. In the character editor, I will choose the darker color. I will go to the top view now and change the anchor point so it's placed at the back of my layer. Okay, so now I can place this in the center. To really increase this sensation of 3D, let's add a color to the side of our extrusion. In order to complete the look, I will actually scale it down and move it back to the center. And let's create a rectangle. Uncheck the stroke and activate the fill color. And of course you want to choose the same color as the one in the letter B. We duplicate those rectangles and move them around. I will turn the layer to 3D as well and use the same extrusion size I used on the letter, which was 40 pixels. Now I want a group to place those rectangles inside. With that group selected, I can go and choose for a side color. We can zoom in the viewport and just pick the color from that side. Here I need a quick fix on the anchor point so our shapes are aligned. And here we are, we created a 3D Bitcoin in After Effects. Okay, we've done a lot. Now I want to animate this coin. So let's extend the size of our composition. I can do Ctrl K or go here to my composition settings and extend the width to 1920. So I have my coin centered here, and I want to create a new null object, turn it into a 3D layer, and name it coin control. What I'm gonna do now is link and parent all those layers to this coin control. So everywhere I move my null object, the coin will follow. So what we want is to use the position and the rotation. So what we want is the coin to go all the way up here and then go back down. So let's bring it down here at the beginning of the coin, and something like 20 images roughly. We want the coin to be here, and 20 frames later we want to copy and paste this keyframe to have it back down here. So if we look at this animation, it's just a simple linear movement of that coin going up and down. That's really not interesting. So what we want to do is add some speed to it. So in order to add speed, I'm going to select those position keyframes, and I can hit F9 on my keyboard or go to my graph editor by clicking on this icon here, select those keyframes here in my graph editor, and click on this little curve here. That's the same thing as doing an F9. So what happens now is that we are looking at the speed graph of my animation. So it's rather slow, and then it goes up to 1500 pixels per second. So that's showing me the speed from 0 to 1500 pixels per second, and back to 0 pixels per second again. So if we take a look at it, it's going fast, slowing down, fast, slowing down. All right, but that's still a little too fast. So what we want to do is have the coin slow down a lot when it's here up to the higher point in the animation. So I'm gonna grab those handles and extend them to 100% of speed attenuation. So it's smoothing the speed a lot now. So it goes super fast real quick, very slow for a longer duration, and fast down again. That's much better. Very simple use of the graph editor. You really want to get into more tutorials using the graph editor. If you're not comfortable with it, that's really what's going to help you create better animation. So now that our coin is popping up here in the middle of the frame, we want it to rotate slightly before it goes down. So let's say we start facing in this direction, and that's going to be the Y rotation axis. And as we go up here and go back down, we'll move this keyframe here, we are looking just a touch in the other direction. Let's see what it looks like. We have this rotation and we go back down. Let's go to the graph editor again, select those keyframes, hit this curve for the easy ease, and we want to increase the speed like this. Now the speed is a little too fast. What I want to do is to have the coin rotate a little faster, just to emphasize when it's up here. So let's decrease this interpolation. And see what it looks like now. Okay. Let's make the rotation with a wider range of animation. Maybe here. So as you can see, it's really facing to the left direction, and then it rotates to the right just when it's up here before it slows down and goes down. So in the meantime, I would like this to face down, so I'm going to move it on the X rotation. So let's go back to our timeline view. I'm going to move this X rotation keyframe, and I want to rotate this guy in this direction. I'm gonna use this Z rotation as well to stabilize it, to compensate this perspective. Okay, and now when we go down, we want the opposite thing. We want the coin to face up. So if we look at this animation this way, that looks okay, but we can certainly do better with the interpolation of those keyframes as well. So let's select those keyframes. Go to the graph editor, hit the easy ease curve here, and let's change the interpolation of the speed here. So if I look at them all together, they have pretty similar speed interpolation now. Okay, now I want to smooth a little more the animation when it starts to rotate at the beginning here. I think it's a little too harsh in my opinion. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select only the first keyframe here on those three properties and push the handle a little back in. So it's not so fast like this in the beginning. We don't have this bump anymore in the animation. It slows down here before it falls again. So now I'm going to show you a real quick tip to create some simple reflection effect on it. So I'm not gonna play with those material options, even if I could, but it would take a lot to render and a little more time to set up. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and create two rectangle shapes. Okay, so I create one like this. I want to remove the stroke and make it a white fill color. What I could do actually is use a gradient fill, and if you click on your gradient fill, you're going to see two little dots here, and it's basically just showing the ramp of your gradient. So I want to invert this gradient to have black first and white second, like this. Okay. Now I want to name it reflection. Okay. I'm gonna move it here to the beginning. And as we are here, I want the reflection to pass through the surface of my coin before it falls down again. So in order to do that, I'm gonna rotate my shape something like 33 degrees. I'm gonna switch modes here and use a different blending mode. I'm gonna click on add. You can see it creates that kind of sweep, you know, on top of it. Okay, so I want to bring up now the position properties, and when my coin is somewhere here and going up to the right just before it falls down, so I want to move it across the frame and make sure it goes all the way through the coin. Okay, so let's have a look now at the animation. I want to move it a little further away so it doesn't go through the shape again when it falls down. Okay, and what I want to do is, again, use the graph editor, select those keyframes, ease, and make it go quite fast through it. So I want to increase the influence towards the second keyframe, so it goes a little faster here and slower to the end. Let's take a look at the animation. Okay, super fast. So let's move the second keyframe way further in the comp. Alright, so now we have more time to appreciate the movement just when it's rotating. Now we need to mask this layer, so the reflection applies only on the surface of the coin. So in order to do that, when you have your blending modes options here, you want to click that box. And now you can see it disappeared. But if I scroll through my animation, it doesn't disappear here when it goes across my coin. Because what it says here is it preserves the underlying transparency. And this works because if I toggle my transparency grid, you can see I don't have any background. If I create a solid and make it comp size and place it behind, it doesn't work anymore because I don't have any underlying transparency anymore. There is no transparency because this is 100% opacity. But if I don't have any background, it's going to apply only on the shape, like it's masked by the shape. So now if you need a background, what you want to do is to take your coin composition, bring it inside another composition. So you have your animation here with the reflection, okay? And now you can create a solid layer. Choose, I don't know, some kind of light blue color. And now you have your animation on top of the background. So that was nice. You are now a richer of not a Bitcoin, but hopefully some extra knowledge about 3D shape layers in After Effects. So that's it for today. I hope you liked these 3D layer techniques in After Effects. So now you will be able to create, any kind of spinning objects into your compositions. If you liked it, hit the like button and follow the channel if you're not already. The project file is available to download via the link in the description, and also with all the little examples I showed earlier in the tutorial. See you another time, and I wish you a good day. Bye!